Okay, welcome back to the tier list ranking for the individual ink colors for Archazia's island. Um, let's do a really quick recap of the tiers here. D tier is basically not going to see any kind of competitive play. S tier is going to be cards that are either going to further juice the power of established meta decks. They may cause other decks to have to build in order to play around them. A tier, very strong cards, will probably see plenty of play, but maybe not warp the entire metagame around them. B tier are good cards. Probably see a couple copies of these in decks that are already established. Maybe these are cards that will establish their own types of archetypes. And then C tier cards they're fine cards. They might see some play, in flex slots. They might get a couple copies, and they might be mainstays in more fringy type decks. These are still fine cards. D is really the only bad tier, if you will, and that's only in the context of competitive play. But everything else is going to be a fairly reasonable card. So let's go ahead and move on to the Ruby inks. And we are doing, of course, only the pure ink colors now. I'll be ranking all of the multicolor cards or the multi-ink, dual ink cards by themselves, all at once. So it's going to be a much bigger list. So we're going to go ahead and start here with Grandmother Fall. That's a 2-cost inkable 1/1 that quests for 2. Whenever this character quests, you may give chosen character yours +2 strength this turn. The stat line isn't very good. She does quest for 2. She does buff one of your characters. This is kind of an interesting card. Maybe with, I don't know, maybe the new Mickey. This gives that new Mickey, the new legendary Mickey, a route to get the bonus to his strength to be able to challenge and play a free, really big Ruby card. She does quest for 2. She costs 2. She's really, really dependent on you having another character in play and wanting to have that character challenge. I could see this card being pretty decent in Ruby Steel. I don't know that Ruby Steel is going to necessarily be a very powerful ink combination, but I hope it is, very playable this set. It's been one of those decks where the lack of draw power has really been the thing that's holding it back. But they're getting a lot of tools, I think, regardless this set. And so I think Grandmother Fa is an interesting card. And I don't think that it's terrible by any means. So we'll go ahead and put it in C tier. Might see some play, possibly. Queen of Hearts. It's 2-cost, inkable, 1/4. While this character has damage, she gets +3 strength. She quests for 1. This is obviously a shift target for the Ruby Emerald Queen of Hearts. She has a cool mechanic where while she has damage, she hits really, really hard. I don't know where to put this thing. This is kind of the opposite of your cards like Lawrence and Pluto, where when they have no damage, they are stronger. This card wants to have damage. So, you could maybe see the return of something like Teeth and Ambitions. I think this card has a lot of potential just for the strength. The 1/4 stat line is really not all that bad for 2. She's not going to be easily taken out. She'll survive a Calhoun challenge and then be able to either challenge Calhoun back or something else. She holds damage pretty well for Rapunzel. I think that she's a very reasonable card. I think that she's a reasonable card. I don't know that she's going to see tons and tons of play. But yeah. This card might even be up here. So it's either here or here, like top of C, bottom of B. I think this card's actually not terrible. I mean, obviously this card's going to have its problems against other Ruby decks. It's going to be very easily removed by those decks. It's going to be much harder to remove against Steel. This is one I'm really conflicted on. I think I one of the things that I want people to understand is that I briefly looked at the majority of the cards, very briefly. So a lot of what I'm doing when I'm ranking these is kind of ranking them as I see them. And I think this card has a lot of potential. I am not 100% convinced. I mean, this can go into Ruby Amber, Ruby Steel. I don't. This is like obviously not a Ruby Sapphire card. I don't think, and this is not probably not a Ruby Amethyst card either. But I mean, even in Ruby Amethyst, I could, if you crab this, get it buff, and then challenge into something for value, and then now it's a 4/4. I don't know. This card might see real play. Let's leave it in like bottom of B, top of C, like tentatively here. Let's move on to the Matchmaker. It's a 4-cost inkable 4/3 quest for 1. Whenever this character challenges another character, each opponent loses 1 lore. I think this is obviously wanting to be in the Ruby Steel type archetype. Ruby Amethyst, I suppose, but there are better options in Ruby Amethyst at 4. You have the 4 slot is so packed in Ruby Amethyst with Goat, Rabbit, Genie. You don't really have, in my opinion, there's probably not that much room for a card like the Matchmaker. But in Ruby Steel, this card could buy you some time. I still don't know that it sees a lot of play. 4/3 is, it's a good stat line. Quest for 1, that's fine. It says whenever this character challenges another character, so I misread this. I now think a lot less of this card than I would have. I'm gonna put this down here. I don't think this card sees play. All right, moving on to the Stabbington Brother without a patch. That's important. 4-cost uninkable 3/4 quest for 1 has rush, and your other character's name Stabbington Brother gain rush. Cool idea, when you're putting together your Stabbington Brother / Tangled deck. 4/4/3/4 with rush isn't horrendous. It does quest for 1, so if it survives its challenge, it can still quest for 1. It's uninkable. I think the card is it's pretty mediocre. It's probably like really bottom of C, top of D. This is, I'm a little bit torn. I'm going to revisit some of these cards here at the end of this tier list and try to do a rearrangement, but that's kind of where I'm feeling it. Moving on to Cybug. 2-cost inkable 1/2 quest for 1. This character gets +1 strength for each other character you have in play. Well, this is a character that wants you to be going wide. I happen to believe personally that will be a very difficult thing to be doing in the beginning of this metagame. I think for the first part of this new set's metagame, let's say the first month or so, or maybe the entire meta of set 7, red-blue is going to be very dominant, and it's going to be hard to keep a lot of cards on board with red-blue being so prominent. I think blue-steel is also going to be prominent, and they're going to have a pretty good amount of removal as well. So a character like Cybug may struggle to be more than something of like a 2/2 for 2. So just kind of an on-rate, barely on-rate character. What's the ceiling on this thing? I guess you could play it and I don't know, the ceiling on this thing is maybe playing this in your Ruby Amber deck and play a bunch of Escape Artist Lilos and hope that you get a higher roll and get a few of those to continuously come back on the board. And I don't know. I think you're just working really hard to make this card worthwhile. There's going to be times where it's really, really good. I think the most of the time it's going to be a card that you wish was something else. All right, Stabbington Brother with a patch. And this is a 5-cost inkable 4/4 quest for 1. When you play this character, each opponent loses 1 lore. We see these kinds of cards, Aladdin, and I think it's Lady Tremaine. They're all in red. They all, rob a lore from your opponent. I don't think that they're insanely good, and especially not at this cost. This is 5 cost is just a really expensive for this effect. And yes, he has a 4/4 and he rumbles in really good, but I don't think that paying 5 for this sole effect, is good. If you played him and then each opponent lost a lore, and then every time you quested or challenged or something like that and you drew a card, I think he would be very good. Maybe tacking on draw a card to every card is really good, but I think that this card is just not going to really see any play at all. I mean, with the Stabbington Brother, the other one, he gets Rush, and that makes him a lot better, but then you're playing a bad card to make another bad card to a decent card. I don't like that. Moving on, we have the Card Soldiers. This is the 1-cost inkable 1/2. While a damaged character is in play, this character gets +2 strength, and this does not say while a damaged character you control is in play. So I think that this card is kind of interesting. This is probably often going to have the capability of being a 3/2 for 1 and quest for 1. I think this card's pretty nifty. I like this card. I think this card has some. A 1 for a 1/2 that has upside of being able to challenge. I don't know. It's pretty interesting. This can present some issues for your opponents when it comes to challenging. If you play this on, let's say, turn 2, let's say you're playing a really aggressive triple 1-drop start. This ends up being one of those 1-drops. Whatever you quest with or sing with on your first turn, from your first turn, I should say, your opponent may have to evaluate whether or not it's worth challenging into that character to give back a free trade. This is, in particular, really, really good against nuking Calhoun. Calhoun can, if you're on the draw, they play Calhoun on 2, you play Card Soldiers and another 1-drop on 2, then they're very incentivized to challenge with Calhoun and take that first 1-drop out. But Card Soldiers, it really depends on what your 1-drop is. If it's something like a Robin Hood, or if it's a 2-strength character that's going to leave a damage on Calhoun, Card Soldiers is a free way to trade into Calhoun. It's also a free way to trade into a lot of other cards. Can punch above his weight. I think critically, this is also going to be able to trade into the early one. It's not a 1-drop, but she's going to come down on turn 1. I think fairly often. The Bell, the new blue Bell. I think that this can challenge into that. I don't know. I think this card is really interesting. I don't know that this is B. Maybe it's in C tier, but my arm could maybe be twisted to put it here. But we're going to put it here for now. Moving on to Cogsworth. That's a 3-cost, inkable, 3/3, quest for 1. While you have an item card in your discard, this character gets 2 strength. So this would be a 5/3 for 3. Ruby Sapphire. I don't know that Ruby Sapphire necessarily wants this card. Turn 3 for Ruby Sapphire, I think, is going to look a little different this meta. With the introduction of Sapphire Coil, there's going to be some choices that are going to get made where you're either going to choose to ramp on 2 or you're going to choose to play Sapphire Coil on 2 to follow up with Sisu on 3. In the world where you're not so concerned with ramping on 2 in order to hit your 4-drop, Cogsworth has some viability. I think that he's fringe, but I think he has some viability. I don't think that the card is completely god awful. I don't know that he has a slot. We're gonna put him at the bottom of C. I don't know that he has a slot for Ruby Sapphire in particular, but if Ruby Sapphire does want this kind of effect, he is great for that, and he probably sees play in very little else, if anything at all. If Ruby Sapphire wants this, and I really would put this here if it wasn't for Sapphire Coil, and that's going to be changing, I think, the philosophy of how Red Blue is playing. Sometimes Red Blue is going to be ramping on 2, sometimes it's going to be playing Sapphire Coil on 2. And I think that the times that you're playing Sapphire Coil on 2, a Cogsworth on 1, a Cogsworth on 3 is potentially a lot more feasible. And it's inkable. Moving on, we have the Toby, 1 cost, uninkable, 3/1. It's a fine card. It's kind of like a Felicia. Yeah, I what to say about it except it challenges in, and it takes care of your opponent's bigger guys. I don't know. Maybe this effect is desirable for certain archetypes. I don't think Ruby Amethyst wants this. I don't think that Ruby Sapphire wants this. Ruby Sapphire is just gonna get an easier time dealing with aggro in this new set without the need for a card like Felicia or Toby, in my opinion. So yeah, I don't think that anybody really wants this card terribly bad. So we'll move on. Moana. It's a 4-cost inkable 4/3 with evasive, quest for 1. Whenever this character challenges another character, another chosen character of yours gets +3 strength this turn. So, we see a trend here of increasing strength by meeting a certain condition in Ruby in this set. The fact that this is evasive is pretty interesting. It can only give another character +3 strength to this turn, which is fine because she has to be the one that's doing the challenging. This kills Genie, and this kills Diablo, and I do think that is going to be somewhat relevant. It does not rumble with Maui, the shark, not cleanly anyways. So, I don't know. I don't know that this is where you want to be in Ruby. I mean, in Ruby Steel, I could kind of see this effect having some play. I don't know. If Ruby Steel is really good, then maybe they want a card like this. I'm gonna put this in the top of D. Personally, I think that the cost is a little higher than Cogsworth, and Cogsworth has a more like surefire home that he could slot into in Ruby Sapphire if they really want that type of effect. And I'm not sure that they even do, but if they really do, then Cogsworth has a more surefire home. Moana is a card that might see play in Red Steel if Red Steel may be good. So let's move on. We got the Phantom Blot. It's a 2-cost uninkable 3/1 with Rush. I don't know. I don't think this card is like terrible. Rushes in, beats up on your opponent's valuable cards and leaves. Right? He just comes in like a thief in the night, and he just takes and walks off. The uninkable, I don't know. I mean, again, I'm going to bring this up again. I think in Ruby Steel, this card is not terrible. If you already have Mushu on the board, this card is pretty good. I mean, it survives plenty of challenges. It's taken a lot of stuff out. I think I'm going to go ahead and put this actually in the C tier. I think this card's not horrific, especially if Red Steel is as good as I'm hoping that it has the potential to be. All right, moving on. We have a rare Maurice, Unconventional Inventor. He's a 4-cost, inkable, 5/2, quest for 1. And when you play this character, you may banish chosen item of yours to draw a card. If the banished item is named Maurice's Machine, you may also banish chosen character with 2 strength or less. So, there's a lot of pairing in this set where one card depends on another card. We've seen this earlier with Cinderella and the Glass Slipper, and these types of combos. This is a fun card. You get to draw a card, and if you have a specific card, the Maurice's Machine that you're banishing, then you get to brawl a character. So I don't know. We'll have to jump ahead and look at Maurice's Machine, which I assume is... No, it's not in red, so it'll be later on. So, why don't we take a quick look at Maurice's Machine here. And then we can get an idea. We won't rate the card. Perhaps there it is. It's in both colors. Yeah, I mean, it's a 3-cost, does nothing unless you banish it. I think that alone should tell you that this card is really just for fun. It's terrible compared to Hiram. You're just going to be playing Hiram. We're going to put this in D. Next up, we have Goofy. This is a super rare. 7 inkable, 7/6 evasive, quest for 1. Whenever this character challenges another character, your other characters get +1 lore this turn. This guy is gonna challenge in and rumble with almost everything in the game. 7 strength is a ton. He does cost 7 ink, which is a lot as well. He's gonna play well with these kinds of effects, like the the shield. I can't remember the name of it. The one that you pay, I think it's 2 or 3 ink, and then you can ready up a character. It can't quest. LeFou. Any of these ready your character up but they can't quest type effects are gonna go pretty well with Goofy to buff your board to be able to quest for 2 additional. But it's kind of an investment, and I don't know you're gonna have a ton of cards in your hand, and I'm not really sure what deck it wants this. Red Steel maybe wants this to be able to just quest out and win. I don't know. It's going to be so predicated on challenging, but this could be just Goofy challenges twice, and then the rest of the board can quest out and win the game. That's assuming that you have a big board, and I've made it pretty clear in my other videos that I truly feel that red-blue is going to be very, very dominant, at least in the first few weeks to month and a half or so of the metagame. I don't know, maybe that will continue all the way through the metagame. But yeah, the blue-red and I think blue-steel are going to be very, very strong. And it's going to be very, very hard to have wide boards. So you'll find it difficult, I think, to have wide boards in this metagame, at least in the beginning. And so a card like Goofy may be the only card you have on the board. And sure, he's really big, but he only quests for 1 on his own. And he really needs you to have a wide board for him to really reap the benefit of playing this card. So I don't think that, at least in the beginning, that this card has a place. Maybe it will. Where are you at, Goofy? Here you are. I think if we can get into an attrition-heavy metagame where board states are starting to get locked up, there's plenty of characters, and things aren't just getting wiped away, over and over again, then this card definitely is, here. It's in, it's a decent card. But I think with the way that my prediction is, I think that this is going to be really, really tough to even get it into play and get any real use out of it. I think for 7 ink, you have better options. Okay. 8 cost inkable. Lyle Tiberius Rourke. He's a 6/4, quest for 3. And once during your turn, whenever a card is put into your inkwell, deal 2 damage to each character in play. So this guy... this guy will blow himself up after two times of inking. He costs 8, which is a lot. And so there's only a handful of decks that are going to really want to play this card. Ruby Sapphire has the capability of playing this card with some relative ease. Maybe this is a card that Ruby Sapphire wants to play. I don't know that Ruby Sapphire has space for this card, personally. Ruby Emerald with maybe something like Return of Hercules could cheat this in, and then every time you play in, a card in your inkwell, you spread a bunch of damage and then find a way to cheat in a Prince Philip. I don't know. This will be super, super good against aggro, but again, 8 ink. By the time you're getting to this point, I don't know. Just play a Sisu, wipe the board. It's really tough. I don't think that this card's going to see any play. Even if we were in an attrition heavy meta game, which again I'm just making predictions, I'm taking my best guess here. I don't think that this card's very good at all. I think it's got a really cool art, and I like that they're referencing back to the very end of the Atlantis movie. And I like that he's blowing himself up, literally. But I just don't know that this card is where you want to be at. Blue. Oh, blue. 6 cost, uninkable, 5/4, quest for 2. Your characters with 7 strength or more can't be dealt damage. Now, we're seeing this trend in this set of buffing your character's strength by meeting certain conditions, but all the conditions tend to be all very different. 7 strength is a pretty high bar to clear, and I'm just gonna, we'll just come out here and say that I think this card's awful. I think it's very close to dog water. I don't think that this is a very good card. This is a super bad legendary in this set. So I don't think this sees any play. And I would love to be wrong, because that means that there's some really cool high strength matters deck, but I don't think so. Moving on to our other legendary in red, which is Ratigan, Nefarious Criminal. 4 cost inkable, 3/3, quest for 1. Whenever you play an action while this character is exerted, you gain a lore. Okay. Cost 2 less than Maui Shark, is way harder to trigger than Maui Shark. Maui Shark doesn't care whether or not he's exerted or not. Maui Shark has got way, way better stats. He also costs 2 more. So this is tough. I don't think Ratigan is out of play. Just because he is way outclassed by Maui Shark doesn't mean that he doesn't fit into that kind of DKP red blue burn style deck or another type of burn deck. I think that him and Maui Shark together will be able to close out games really, really rapidly. So I don't think that he has no place. I just think that he's way outclassed by Azurite Seas Maui Shark. But that being said, he does come down earlier and can get your burn going and get you to a point where Maui Shark is even more effective. So I think that the card is fine. Do I think that he's like insane? No, I don't think so. I think maybe he's like in the burn decks, specifically in those burn style decks, he's a B. I think anywhere else he's probably in the C tier. But in the burn decks, he's going to be B. You're going to see probably a couple copies. Maybe you'll see a full 4 copies. I don't know. But in those burn style decks, you're going to see some copies of this guy. I think that he's fine. All right, moving on to Sir K. He's a 2 cost inkable, 2/2, quest for 2. I mean, it's a fine card. You could do worse. It's vanilla, doesn't have any abilities, but he does quest for 2. He is a 2/2. Yeah, I think he's okay. I think he has a chance of seeing, some type of play, uh, and especially like in Ruby Steel. But I don't think that he's like amazing. Like he, maybe make an argument for him here. I think that he's probably like slightly better than Goofy. He's coming down on 2. He's questing for 2. Yeah, I think he's okay. We'll put him there. I'm feeling generous with this character. Okay. Going on to Milo Thatch. We have another rare. 2 cost, inkable, 2/2, quest for 1. Whenever you play an action, you may give chosen character +2 strength this turn. I think this goes into that actions matter type deck, right? The burn style decks. I think this deck has legs still going into the metagame. I don't really know if it's better than the item-based red-blue or if it's even going to end up being a red-blue style deck. I would caution and say yes, it probably is, but I think that this card has some utility there. So I don't think that it's gonna reinvent the wheel here, but I think it's fine. All right. Edgar Balthazar is a 5 cost inkable, 6/5, quest for 1. Got great stats. He's vanilla. He's going to see probably next to no play. 5 cost, 6/5, quest for 1. The only thing that he does better than Maui, Hero of All, is quest. That's about it. So I don't see him seeing any play. We've got Company. That's a 3 cost uninkable action. Ready all your characters and they gain Reckless this turn. In Ruby Steel, this card is probably really, really good. And predicated on the fact that Ruby Steel hopefully is a decent deck, we're going to put this like up here. Ruby Steel has a lot of uninkables, so I don't know that you want to put like 4 of these or anything in there, but I could see a couple copies in your Ruby Steel deck. Out of Order, banish chosen character, 7 cost inkable action. This is not going to see any play. If this was 6 cost, this card would have been good, especially because of the Robin Hood Sharpshooter. Because this is 7 cost and you can't play it for free off of Robin Hood, this card is not good. It's terrible. All right, Ruby Coil, 2 cost inkable item. During your turn, whenever a card is put into your inkwell, chosen character gets +2 strength this turn. I think this card will see a little bit of play. This is the easiest to trigger of all of the get plus strength if you do X cards. So I think this is going to see some play. I don't know exactly where it sees play. But I think it sees some amount of play. I don't know that it's going to be up here. And certainly out of the coils, this is one of the better ones. So, unconventional tool. Okay. 1 cost inkable item. When this item is banished, you pay 2 ink less for the next item you play this turn. I know that the dream is to play this and then to play, banish it, play Bell, and then play Sapphire Coil for free or play a Popsicle for free or something like that. But this card does nothing on its own. You play Popsicle because it does something. You play Sapphire Quill because it does something. You play your Fishbone Quills and you play your Lucky Dimes and things like that because they do something. This card legitimately does nothing unless it gets Flavershimmed, unless Bell is banishing it to come into play. This card's bad. And yeah, this card is bad. People are going to try this card, I think, and they're going to quickly find that this card is totally useless. And I think this is just in D tier. And then Devil's Eye Diamond. This is the last red card that we have. And I have a couple things to say about it. So it's a 2 cost inkable item. You can exert it if one of your characters was damaged this turn, gain 1 lore. Okay, first thing is first. I don't really like this card. I don't think that this card is terrible, but I do not like this card. There are 2 reasons why. There are other colors that get effects like this, like Sleepy's Flute and things like that, and they are much easier to trigger. Yes, this is inkable. no, I do not think that that matters. If you are on a board with no characters and blue red is constantly wiping your board off the face of the planet, this card is just never triggering, right? Um, or it's going to be really, really difficult to trigger. So it's going to be sitting there doing nothing. The other qualm that I have with this card is that the enchanted. I I hate this enchanted. I really do. I think that giving this item the enchanted was so bad. Radigan's enchanted. I have only one issue, and there's no hat. He's not. He doesn't have his top hat. I really like the Radigan enchanted. I think it's a really good looking card, and I think that the enchanteds in this set look really good. But you look at Radigan, you look at Bell, you look at Devil's Eye Diamond, and yes, all of these are supposed to be more flat, more cartoon-esque, which is great. But Devil's Eye Diamond just doesn't do it for me. This is an item. This is a card that if you're ripping packs and you pull this as your enchanted, if you're in week 1 of this set, you're gonna want to sell this card immediately. If you are a collector of all enchanteds, you can disregard that statement. And some people don't care about the value of a card or the playability of the card. They just like collecting them. And that's absolutely fine. And I have, no qualms with anybody's, preferences and how they do things. But this card is going to be worth very little money, in my opinion. It's taking up a slot that red could have given to, gosh, there's so many other cards. Obviously not Mushu because Bell got it. And Mad Hatter is even, do I think that this card is great? I don't know. We'll address that when we get to it, but I like the art at least. I think it's, a good looking card. I think Devil's Eye Diamond's just really bland looking card. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe there wasn't a whole lot of other cards to give the enchanted to. And maybe that's ultimately the problem. Maybe they could have given it to Baloo. I don't know that Baloo is a particularly good card, but he is a character. And it would have been nice to see. I don't know that we've gotten a Jungle Book character outside of Shere Khan getting an enchanted. So it would have been nice to see Baloo get one. But anyways, that is going to put the Devil's Eye Diamond here. I don't like this card. Maybe it'll see a little bit of play, fringe play. And I guess I can begrudgingly put it here because there's going to be times where it does nothing, and there's going to be times where it gives you something. It's like a Sorcerer's Spellbook, but worse. It's like a Sleepy's Flute, but worse. It's like a lot of other items, just worse, in my opinion. It's only got the fact that it's inkable on its side. So here's my final rankings for Ruby. Ruby got no cards that I think are truly standing out. I think this is probably going to be like this. And I think we said we would address the Moana again. Let's take a look at her. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe you could make an argument for Moana being like up here. But yeah, I this is kind of where I kind of feel things fall for Ruby. Ruby didn't get a whole lot of juice. It did not need it because Sapphire does all the heavy lifting for them. And then Ruby can contribute a card or two of removal over time. So that's kind of how I feel about Ruby in this set. Let me know what you think. What did I get wrong? What did I miss? Does Radigan belong up here? I think as far as for style points, he's an S tier character, but as far as playability and competitive, I don't know that he's going to be changing the game a whole ton. I think he goes into a very specific deck, the burn deck, and I think he's good there. I don't think that he's astonishing or game-changing there. I think that he's just another Maui Shark effect, and that's good, but it's really good. It's just not, hey, this is going to be slammed in all your decks type good. This would probably have a better shot of being in an A tier, maybe. It's kind of a contentious statement. Maybe not. Yeah, maybe this really does belong like this. It's kind of hard to tell. But yeah, these are my final thoughts on Ruby, and yeah, we're gonna go ahead and address the sapphire and steel cards in the next videos, yeah, let me know.